a gap in the way that men show up today to hold space for those around them, especially for our feminine.
Women now don't need men. They can provide for themselves, they can look after themselves, they can have babies on their own if they choose to. Now it's more women want a man that can bring something to their lives and add to their lives and connect with them on a deeper level than just the kind of surface level of finances and material items.
And it's creating such a divide. If I'm not needed anymore, what's the point?
Welcome to the Authentic Man podcast. I am your host, David Chambers. This is a podcast for men who want more and less from life. More deep connection, more emotional intelligence, more self-awareness, and more great sex. And less. Less heartache, less conflict, less overthinking, and less stress. Creating dating lives, sex lives, and relationships that are incredible and authentic. My deepest goal is that you, the listener, can take away what you hear in this podcast and apply it to your life so that you can experience greater happiness, transformational growth, deeper relationships, and profound sexual intimacy. I believe that as men, we are capable of so much more depth than we are shown or led to believe. So join me as we get deep into this. Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers. And today I have a wonderfully enthralling conversation that dances. As you know, if you listen to my podcast enough, it's a few of listeners have got in contact with me and said what they love about the podcast is that it's just like listening to two people having a conversation. And this is no different. I've got my guest, Adil, a men's coach based out in Dubai. And we talk a lot about obviously masculinity, and he touches along some stuff around kind of mother wound and so forth. And we talk a lot also about, the stuff behind your problems, the thinking behind your problems, the assumptions behind your problems, the lack of accountability behind your problems. We really get into that, as well as integrity. It's like how we are integral to ourselves and to our partners in our relationship. We really get into that because it's an important part of what I see in relationships and why they don't work. And then we start getting into the world of finding love, keeping love, and dating. We touch on those bits and pieces. There's stuff that we both work on a fair bit. And this is just a really flowing conversation, There's stuff about confidence and self-esteem, actually. It's a very important bit about confidence and self-esteem in there as well. But accountability, there's a lovely chunk about the importance of accountability, both in our lives, how that affects our relationships, but also in our word of ourselves. So it's important stuff there. If you're listening to this and you're interested in dating, I have a workshop I'm running. And by the time this comes out, it will be Monday following the 20th of November, called Creating the Spark. It's a workshop I've run before. It's really about taking you through the structural nature of creating a spark on a date, because there's a really important piece that I see a lot of men struggling with. We even talk about it a little bit on the podcast. And yeah, that's going to be at 7 o'clock UK time. The link's in the show notes if you want to sign up for that. Come along. We'd love to have you. Without further ado, I'll let you jump into the episode. So, guests, back for another wonderful episode. And I'm speaking to a man who I followed for a long time. Sometimes when you're on Instagram, you feel like you're following people for years, and it might be years, and following his content, and a man after my own heart. And I have a feeling that we have a very similar way of working with people. And I see that he really powerfully empowers men. I love that phrase, powerfully empowers men to live their lives. But not just I'm only going to talk to you about your career. I'm only going to talk to you about your dating life, because, the sense I get from following his content and reading a lot of what he says is that he sees the way our men's lives is very much similar to me is that actually there's the things behind the things that are really influencing how we show up, the thoughts that we have, the way we make assumptions about ourselves and the way that we think about ourselves. So I'd like you to introduce our guest today, Adil. How are you doing, Adil?
Yes, David, thank you so much, man. It's like I said, it's crazy that we've finally connected like this, like feeling like I already know you. Just it's been a long time coming, I think, this one. So thank you for having me here, man.
Yeah, man. It's a pleasure. Pleasure having you here.
So a little bit about what I do. So I class myself as a masculinity coach. And I say that because I think there's a bit of a gap in the way that men show up today, in their kind of masculine energy, in their essence, and in just being a man. And I think we're in a world now where there's a bit of shame around being masculine. There's a bit of shame around what it means to be a man, to have that kind of authority or that direction and that leadership, and that ability to hold space for those around us, especially for our feminine and for the women of the world. And where the wave of feminism that we're in right now is very much geared around independence and not needing the masculine, not needing men around them. It leaves men thinking, like, where do we stand? Where do I stand? If I'm not needed anymore, what's the point? And it's creating such a divide. And to what I'm trying to do with the men that I work with is bring them back into the truth, bring them into a place of, what they know to be true about themselves, really inherently deep down, and what they want to bring out, uncover the things that they're suppressing, and then talk about it. And then hopefully encourage them to be more confident in who they are as a man in society and their purpose and their part to play.
Beautiful. And, there's so many things in there, actually, I could just dive into off the bat, but it's like, I think the piece that I'm talking with men a lot is what you said is about, like, women not needing men, right? And I think that statement is true. And that they no longer need men in the way they did maybe, 30, 40, 50 years ago, 60 years ago even, right? They need a man to open a bank account or to buy their own home or to be with them so they could, have wealth and so forth. Women now don't need men. They can provide for themselves. They can look after themselves. They can have babies on their own if they choose to. And now it's more women want a man that can bring something to their lives and add to their lives and connect with them on a deeper level than just the kind of surface level of finances and material items. And I think a lot of men, and I'm interested in your opinion, is a lot of men have confused this, maybe subconsciously or consciously, with being redundant. Like, just because you're not needed, it doesn't mean that you can't be, it's not that I can't find the word, it's like wanted. Yeah. They kind of confuse it like, women don't need us, so women also don't want us. And yeah, I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
But at the same time of this phrase of not needing us, I do feel like it's glamorized to be alone and to be single as a woman these days. That, so as much as it's portrayed that men are no longer needed, it is very, very heavily and intrinsically linked to that want. What do they want me for then? What is that? And that bit still isn't being talked about. Yes, there is a disparity between need and want. And I feel like the want is that craving of, like, I really want to be in that energy of that man or with him, but I don't need him to fulfill the things that I want or do or can do with my life. So I understand that concept. But I also feel like inherently as a man and that masculine energy, we need to feel needed, to feel that we're fulfilling part of our duty as a man. That sense of like, okay, she needs me, I think that's quite fulfilling, So they're like typical, okay, just like stereotypical cliche thing of like, open this jar for me. I know it's cliche and it's not how we live, whatever, it doesn't matter, but the second we open that jar, we just feel good. Like, okay, she needed me to do that. Like, it's nice, So it's kind of the same, even as you bring that out into the kind of macrosphere or the macrocosm of life. We want to feel needed in society. Now that we're not, we're just, women can do it all and it's great. But what I find now becomes the where the imbalance comes is that the masculine, feminine, between them, the dynamic is all off. You know, so we've got women very much in their masculine energy, and men are becoming more feminized, and it's just not working. And so what I'm finding, and I can speak from experience, because a lot of the women I speak with out here in the UAE, they want a masculine man. Like they say it, I want a masculine man, but they're very masculine. So when they do meet a masculine man, they're just butting heads, you know? And so that needs to be something that's like kind of unlearn and relearn, and that softness back into the feminine, without it being associated with being weak or dependent. You know, these words, like especially dependency, is like it's seen as a bad thing, but it's not. It's about understanding that you bring different qualities to each other. You know, if I think about what I would like from a feminine woman, it's that nurture, it's that compassion, that softness, and I find that women have had to create a hard exterior to just compete in this man's world. You know, and I get it. I 100% get it. But what we need to be able to do is encourage our men to be more masculine, so that the women can soften. You know, and that's why also I do what I do, because I want to create a safe world, you know, where men are in touch with a healthy masculinity, so women can feel like, okay, cool. Okay, there's some good men around, I can relax a little, you know? And that's the problem, especially out here. I mean, I don't know what your experience is in Dubai and the UAE, but every other person tells me that it's hard to date here. And I know this is your specialty, right? This is your area. Dating in Dubai is like almost like a joke to people, you know, like it's this cycle of despair. Oh, I can't find a partner here. Then you've got men well into their 40s that are just still single and struggling. Like, then it gets to a point like, okay, but I'm looking at you, man. I ain't looking at them. If you still can't find the right person after all these years, you got to look inside, brother. You know, what's really happening? And that's also what I do. I'm looking at helping them uncover what's happening inside. Because I was the same. Like when I was dating in London, I was just bouncing around from one person to the other, you know, and everyone else was the problem. They weren't like this, or they like this. I get it. Incompatibility can be a thing and whatever. But at some point, you've got to look at yourself and think, what am I not facing? And for me, it was the lack of love from my mum when I was growing up that I didn't really face. And then realizing that because of that lack of love, I sought love in all the places, even when I had a relationship. And so attention from every source was like needed and wanted and craved. And obviously that ends up leading into quite damaging activities, cheating on my girlfriends, and leaving a trail of heartbreak and pain. But when I faced it, it all made sense. And I had to make peace with it. But the first part was that awareness.
Yeah. It's that awareness of looking at oneself. I think you mentioned it. It's like so much of people's, we'll talk about men here. Men's like attention is outward, like what other people aren't doing, and giving them like, oh, there's no good women around. Like those women, they all want these things that it's always the same story. I don't know if you notice it. All the women want the things that I don't have, or I am not. And that's not my fault, and they should change. Right. And woe is me. So there's times I've got into coaching conversations with people like first time round, and this might sound a bit harsh, listeners, but it's done in good faith, where they rattle on to me about all the reasons why they can't meet somebody. And I've gone, should we get the violins out then? Should we get the violins out? Because it's over for you then if that's all what you've just told me is really true. So tell me, is what you've just said to me really actually fucking true? And like, there's a few guys that have like, leant back in a chair and gone, nah, it's not. That's actually not the truth. Like that's what I keep telling myself. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, we can start with that. Like, but if you really believe that is how it is, then, you know, I'll be out of business to some degree. But I love what you said there. It's like looking at ourselves and looking at like, what's our our stories and narratives about love, and like, did we get the attention we desired? You know, did we not get the acknowledgement from our fathers that we wanted? Do we have a father we were there, or were we overly loved by our mothers, right? So we expect the world to be nice and easy and soft and gentle with us all the time, or did we not get the love that we wanted? And then we're chasing love everywhere we can find it, you know, from anything feminine that we can get it from, whether it's people, whether it's experience, whether it's nature. It's like looking at ourselves, because when we look at ourselves, it's like that's how we can set ourselves free and start to create the lives that we really want and desire.
Man, that's so true. You know, I would even go a step to say, just asking why. Why am I like this? Just every now and again, just check in with your behavior. You know, why do I attract this type of person? Or why do I behave in this way? Why am I always chasing women? Why is one woman not enough? Just ask why. You already know your I feel like the moral compass is inbuilt. We already know when things are good or when things are bad. You know, inherently good or bad. So just asking why. I've got a client that I'm working with that has reached out to me and said that, you know, he keeps chasing women and he needs to understand what's going on. And so we're just going to dive in and just see where it started and what that's giving him, you know, because everything is giving us something. There's something that we need, something that we desire. It's fulfilling a part of us. So every habit, every vice, everything that's there is just fulfilling us in some way. To understand what is fulfilling, and let's work on that bit, you know? And again, I'm sure you're doing the exact same thing with the guys. You have to understand the root, where it's come from. And I don't like dwelling on the root. I think you're the same. I don't like dwelling on it. Like, cool, just we bring some awareness to it, and let's work on the pathway to moving you out of that, you know, getting on the new path. That's like, I'm not a therapist. I can't do the work that therapy does, and go speak to a therapist. That's what you want. But I'm the guy that's gonna poke you and push you and make you start doing things that you maybe don't want to do, but you know you should.
Yeah. And similar is like the root is important because it's what started off this habit or pattern. Or you get closest to root you can, because sometimes it's not possible to get completely to the root. But I know I don't know what your experience is often men are like, I don't want to go back. There's no point talking about the past. There's no point talking about the past. What's the good of talking about the past? And they're like, well, actually, it's because you can see where this thing started, this avoidance you have, or this grasping, or this feeling of desperation started out. It might have just started out with, you know, you had a feeling of abandonment now, and it might have started because, I don't know, you were 10 years old or 5 years old and your mother left you at school and you cried. And that was the first time you experienced, and you believed that, I'm always going to be left. And then you shaped your whole life out of that. And then you can see that what you're doing now is not based on the truth of this moment, the truth of your reality now. It's based on the truth of reality of a 5 or 10-year-old. And in that moment, you can separate what you've been thinking from the reality you're experiencing now and go, oh shit, I've been thinking that everyone's going to leave me. And then I act in a way that causes people to leave me because I believe they're going to leave me. And I create the very scenario that I'm actually scared of. And for me, it's the benefit of seeing the root of it. But then you don't have to sit there and talk about it for months on end. You know, I've gone through therapy and it has uses, but sometimes they do keep you talking about the same subject endlessly without why I think coaching is so powerful. And you probably agree with me, is coaching takes you forward. Right. This is what I always tell people is like, I'm here to get you forward in life, to move you towards that man you want to be in 5 years' time. And we can start to leave behind that root cause. But it's like, but if we don't know where it started and you can't let go of the fact that that thing isn't quite the truth, the thought pattern, the idea, the dysfunctional way of thinking, you're going to keep going back to it and holding on to it as if it is the reality of this moment.
100%. I'm with you on the coaching takes you forward. I think, you know what, therapy and coaching go nicely together. You know, so if you're speaking to a therapist and and then you've got a coach as well, like it's a perfect combination. Then you can come to me and say, Adil, okay, so this is what I found out in my therapy. I'm like, great, okay, let's go with that. Let's go. What's the action around that step? And you tell me what the action is. It's a very nice combination. It's very. I've had therapy and I found the same thing, like you said, we're talking about the same stuff, And I found that I wasn't getting any solutions. And I think as men as well, we are very solution orientated. We do want to kind of get there with like, okay, what's the step? How do we do this? But I find that the men that come to me, they're lost. They're lost. They're like, I don't know what to do now. You know, you spend all that time trying to be solution orientated for life, for everyone else, and then you push down into the depths of your stomach what you need, and you don't even know in the end like how to even pull yourself out of this hole. And it's quite nice that we're talking today because, you know, it's Men's Health Month, November, typically geared around health itself and prostate care and all that kind of stuff. But actually, you know, it's our mind that is the one that torments us the most as men. We think so much about everything and we keep it all to ourselves. You know, we keep everything to ourselves. And those men that can speak up and do speak up are the ones that are liberated. But the ones that don't are living this lonely life where there's a few men in their head just talking it out. And normally it's not very nice chat. You know, it's distressing, stressful and painful. And it can take you to some dark places. And I've been to some dark places. But that's why speaking it out helps. Plus taking the right steps to move forward and do what's necessary. I don't know, it's easy just to sit where you are and just not make any changes because that's comfortable. But that long-term comfortability becomes immediate pain, you know, and eventually it will come back to bite you. That's why I think it's so necessary that we talk it out, we take action, and we talk it out with people that can keep us accountable. And I know that's a strong theme, right? Accountability. And what we typically do as men is just not tell anyone anything, therefore no one can hold us accountable. So therefore, if we mess up, no one knows except us, and we're also the most easygoing, you know, boss of ourselves. It's okay tomorrow. It's okay. I'm human. You know, I deserved it today because I had a hard day. Whatever it might be, fill in the blanks. But accountability is key.
So why do you think it is that as men we kind of are afraid or avoid being held accountable?
I think it's because we don't want to be seen as failures. I think when you have someone else looking at you, then someone else knows if you didn't do what you're supposed to do. Someone else knows that you didn't meet that target, or you didn't step foot in the gym, you didn't stick to your meal plan, you didn't look after your, I don't know what it might be. Like I said, fill in the gaps of all the things that we possibly might do as a man. It's someone else that can say, you didn't do it. And our ego is like, wait, I don't like it. You know, you're shining a light on someone's truth. And if that's a hard thing for a man, because we're so intrinsically linked to our ego that it becomes this inhibitor of growth, you know, doesn't allow us to move forward if we are so heavily reliant on this ego to protect us. It doesn't protect us. We think it protects us, but it's not. It's actually holding us back, you know? We need to be prepared to fail. We've got to be prepared to like say, guys, I didn't do what I said I was going to do, but it's okay tomorrow. Call me tomorrow, make sure I did it. That's okay. That's okay. So I think it's the fear of being seen to be a failure, or just fear of being seen. What do you think?
I've had interesting experiences of accountability with men over the last kind of year, because I've been running like men's programs, like online programs. You know, I commonly give them something to do every week. And what's interesting is what I notice, and this is going to sound really simple, really, is the men who take on the actions and do them are the men that get the most benefit out of the programs. Simple as that. This is a really simple truth that I see. Men that take on the actions and do them. And then there's the excuses you hear from the men that often don't. It's like, I forgot. I've been really busy. I've been stressed at work. And I've been really interested in the kind of aspect of a man observing another man obtaining success and the things he wants, while seeing himself not hold himself accountable, or not allowing the group to hold himself accountable, and not getting the things he wants. And I wonder, with many of us, it's like, are we subconsciously scared of trying, making the effort to do something and then potentially failing? So we would rather not try, and then we've consciously said to ourselves, I'm not going to try, so I haven't held myself accountable, so I haven't really failed, because I've not really been in the agreement. And I think that's a big part of it. It's a big part of, I think there's also that the uncomfortability of the action, of like being in doing something to change something that could take you out of your narrative about yourself. Like, say, for instance, it's, a lot of men come to me around confidence, and particularly dating confidence and relationship confidence. And I might say to a guy, I often start with very simple things, depending where he's at. I'll be like, I want you to start going out and just talking to strangers more. People you see in restaurants, people who serve you in coffee shops. I want you to talk to them more. Go beyond hello, how are you? And move into like, hey, how's your day? Like, how long are you working here? And, get to know them a little bit more. And when they have to do that, they have to face that there's an idea about who they are that they have to let go of. Like, they might say, I'm shy. I don't do things like that. And I'm like, okay, that's good. Well, I'm happy for you, and we can put that behind you and we can move forward. But there's a part of them has to face that, like, I need to let go of being shy and embrace this unknown new way of being. And I think that is scary for them, because there's an unknown, and, our ego doesn't like the unknown. It would rather hold on to this negative and painful way of being than step into something that could be beautiful and amazing and unknown. So I think there's like some conscious stuff that happens around the accountability. And then there's a whole, like the iceberg, there's a lot of unconscious stuff that occurs to them they're not even aware of, that holds them back from being held accountable by others, or hold himself accountable to what it is. And inside of a one-to-one work, you can kind of really get deep into that and be like, okay, what came up for you? What emotions arose for you that was blocking you? But in a group setting, I've seen it can be a little bit trickier if people just refuse to really show up and share.
So I definitely see that when the men that come to BrotherhoodDXB, which is my men's group, when they come to part of the group itself and you've got men sharing certain things, there'll always be men that don't share as much. When I speak to these men afterwards, they always say to me that they took so much away from just hearing the other man's perspective, hearing what they were going through. It encourages their reflection. So there's a time and a place for the group coaching stuff, for just being around other men. But that one-to-one time, like you were saying, just you can really get into kind of the root of things and ask the right questions, and then encourage that progressive action where we can then hold them accountable. But going back to the entirety of the accountability topic is, we don't like being held accountable, because we don't like feeling like someone can see us for who we really are, for what we have done, for what we haven't done. And I personally like working more on a one-to-one basis, but I do encourage my men to keep me accountable. And sometimes we talk about accountability as the good things, but what about the other shit? What about when we see your boy cheating? There's accountability as well. Like, how many men would say to their friend, like, yo, what are you doing? Like, come on, this is not okay. That's also accountability. That isn't that common. My friends used to do it to me. I'm grateful. Yeah? I'm very grateful. They would still do it in a kind of playful way, but they would never really sit me down and say, what are you doing? Like, what are you playing? Like, we're kind of like, yo, what are you doing? Like, just a bit more chill. But we typically, like, just going back to that, we typically look at accountability as this good thing. We need accountability partners. But no, we need to be living our life with integrity. And I think that's the missing key. That's the missing link here, is this integrity part. Men being a man of your word. And we go back to being the authentic man, to David Chambers, yeah? It's about, okay, am I living in congruence with how I see the world and the kind of the vision I put out, and the man that is people are seeing? Am I actually that man at home? And no one's looking, And I think the truth is that many men are not the same man outside as they are inside. And if we can work on the man inside, it won't matter. What you portray will be your truth. So integrity over everything. That's the one. And that's what I really push for. It's like, okay, let's be a man of our word. I admit there's things that I've done in my past that I'm not proud of, but they're never going to be repeated again. Because I want to walk my talk, especially now being a men's coach and working with, it's even more like I have to, I want to, but I also have to. I get it that I can kind of like trip from time to time, at the same time that people are watching me. I'm in Dubai now, people know me as a men's coach. And Dubai is a very small place. Like, you'll become known very quickly. And if I'm out here doing some shady stuff, it will be known very quickly and my reputation's gone. So I've got like instant accountability, 360, all over the place, but I also know that I want to walk my talk, and I want to make sure that for my men, for the guys around me, that they see that, okay, he is someone that, he means what he says. He says what he does what he says. And that's the strongest accountability for you. How you can get there to yourself is say, what kind of man do I want to be? And how do I make sure that happens? And even linking that back to what we talked about earlier around the feminine being able to surrender and feel soft is when they can trust the man. And if a woman can trust a man, that it just solves so many things. A lot of the time when our women in our lives are nagging at us and complaining because they don't trust you. And it doesn't mean they don't trust you that you're going to go cheat. They don't trust your word. They don't trust your word. And how many of us just don't even trust our own word? I want to start gym tomorrow as like a basic example, and you don't. I'm going to go for a run, and you don't. I'm not going to drink this month, and you still do. So many examples where we're just not sticking to what we say.
And I loved how you related to like the integrity, the accountability, and being our word back to the feminine, right? And being with our feminine partners, because there's a certain level that like when we can't be our word to ourselves, like, I don't know, say, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to start going to the gym, right? We say to our partners, let's use something really simple, right? I'm going to start going back to the gym to our partners. And they're like, awesome. Looking to hear, look great. That's going to be really great for you. You're going to have more energy, blah, blah, blah. And then we don't go. Right? Then our feminine partner, consciously or unconsciously, right, is like, I can't trust your word because you've just told me you're going to do something and you're not going to do it. And especially if we're one of those people where that's also happening inside of our relationship. Maybe we are promising to bring more depth, more love, more connection, more date nights, whatever it is, and we're not doing that. And inside of those simultaneously not being our word, we're creating distance with our partner because they don't trust us. So they may not come to us with their problems. They may not feel honestly as attracted to us sexually, right? As the sex life might start to dwindle, they just generally might not see us as that masculine partner that they can rely on, that is trustable, right? In multiple areas of our lives. And this all comes down to the way that we are treating the relationship, but also how we treat ourselves and being our word to ourselves and our ability to like do the things that we say we're going to do because those things are actually what we want to / what are good for us.
100%. And it's like, so you say subconsciously or consciously, I feel like it's more work on the subconscious level, but sometimes you can't even explain it. They just that's just what they feel. And we don't know how to explain it. As men, we can't even articulate what normally would happen. And you just think, what's that going to do with anything? So what if I didn't go to the gym? Like, that's my journey. But no. And this is what I feel like we as men need to understand, is we're being tested and observed all the time. Like 24/7. I'm all observing. We're observing her, she's observing us, vice versa. And the more we can kind of get to grips with that element and how much impact we have, or how much impact our actions and our behaviors have, I think we'll take more care. And not for the reason of making sure she's safe, but for just taking care of how we move through the world and how we move through life. I feel like I'm just cutting your nose at death by 1,000 cuts, or just slowly just nipping away at like who you are as a person by creating this distrust within yourself. And then when you look at other things like, okay, how does a man show up when he goes to work, and how does he look after his health, and how is his finances, and all these things are linked, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it's actually one of my favorite phrases that my best friend said to me, and it really always stuck with me. Everything, there's always a pattern in everything that we do. How I am in my relationships is how I am with my money, is how I am, but it's all the same. So if we can just get the little things right, the big things will sort themselves out. And that, for me, it all starts with integrity, and I lost it with integrity. So for most of my life, I wasn't living with integrity. I thought I was this nice guy on the outside, but the good man didn't exist, and I'm working hard to be a good man and not the nice guy. And I know that this thing you also understand, and you talk to about with your people, and it's just this false image that we put out there, to be perceived. And that links to the other part of this, being able to speak up and be honest and share your truth and be vulnerable. And sometimes you've got to do the hard things. And that sometimes means saying things that other people might not like to hear. And sometimes that person that has to hear that is you. You have to hear the hard things. You got to hear that maybe you're not a good guy right now. That's okay. But it's been up. Let's just start there. Let's look at the gaps. What kind of man do you want to be? How are you now? And what's the gap that you need to fill? And the same thing that you're doing with men with their confidence, and then especially with dating relationships, is there's always a way in which they could become a more evolved, authentic man. Yeah, it's a journey.
Yeah. And there's an example of my own life. Many years ago, I was renovating my flat in East London, and I was dating a woman at the time, and she had studied interior design, so she was like sending me these colors, and like I was thinking about getting like wallpaper. You got these like wild scene wallpapers. I was like looking at all that, and for some reason we kind of stopped dating midway through that, and I remember speaking to her probably maybe a year and a half later. I think we might have bumped into each other, and I was sending her some pictures. I was like, oh, this is my flat. Like I did it. And she replied to me. She was like, wow, I didn't think you were going to do it. I just thought you were talking about doing it. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that's really interesting actually, because, we only knew each other for maybe a few months. So her thinking of me was I was not really a man who followed through on the things that I wanted to do. And it did make me stop and think, I wonder if there was anything else inside of what occurred in our relationship that made her think that way. And, I didn't spend a huge amount of time on it, right? But like that was her opinion of me, right? That was her opinion around who I was, that I didn't follow through on things, right? And I often wonder, like, with men, it's like how many men have dated people or have been in relationship with people, and they didn't have any idea that the person they were with didn't believe they were a follow through type of person, that they were the sort of person that would talk about doing things, that would like talk about changing their life and changing their finances and blah, blah, blah. But the women that came to the realization that this man is not a follow through type of guy. This man is not trustable with his word. And that is the very thing that pushed them away. Right. And I always made me wonder, like, wow, because so many men come and say, oh, my partner left me and it's because of this, they left me for another man and blah, blah, blah. And it it's not something I usually bring to my clients, but it's like, I often ask them, what was it in a relationship that might have pushed them away? But I always wonder, like, how many men are out there and their relationships are either broken down or slowly breaking down. And it's almost a lot to do with the fact that they don't follow through on their promises and their agreements. And that has pushed their partner to a point of like, I don't trust this man. This man doesn't care about me because he doesn't fulfill on his promises, and I'm out. But they never found out that was the very reason.
I'm sure it's probably more common than we think, Actually, if anyone listening to this, it's worth asking your current partner or even your ex, if you have that ability to see whether you or someone in their life that they could trust your work. You know, I think it's a powerful exercise. I'm going to ask my people, my friends and family, can you trust that I'll do what I say I'll do? You know, and has that changed over time? Is it more now, less now? Like what? That's a very interesting thing. And also, if you even think about that, what kind of man would you want to be perceived as? I want to be perceived as a man that is a man of his word, and that if I say something to you, you know I'm going to do it. You know, so that even that's a nice awakening. It might be hard to hear, but that's the way to hear. And I know people that I can go to and I can rely on it. And I can definitely admit that I haven't always been someone that can be relied on. You know, especially in my relationships. Took the easy way. Making all the excuses. It's easy to make excuses. But eventually it'll catch up with us. And from a root level, from that kind of primordial level, primordial, is that even the word? I don't know. Primal. If we can't be trusted, we can't be trusted to be the father of children. That's really from the primal perspective. You know, where this masculine feminine comes from. It's like, can I trust this man to be the father of my kids? You know, I need someone that I can rely on, some safety. And it always comes back down to that same thing: safety, reliability, honesty, trust. A man that can get shit done. And that's why typically this is what it's been most of the, you know, for our generation before us. The man is the one that thinks that I'll deal with it, don't worry about it. I'll fix this, I'll do that, because it's all linked to that same thing. You know? The doer. Man. That's authenticity right there.
And then cleaning up as well, isn't it? It's like, because there's always going to be, I was in a men's program earlier this year, and the teacher, he said something. He's like, you're always going to be out of integrity in your life. You're always out of integrity somewhere. There's somewhere in your life you're always out of integrity, right? He was like, maybe it's your bedroom is physically out of integrity, like it's a mess. Or your finances out of integrity because you're not keeping an eye on them. Or your word. He said, but the key is an acceptance of that to a degree, but also the cleaning up of when we're out of integrity. Like, okay, oh, my bedroom's a mess. I need to tidy it up. Let me schedule some time in to do that. Oh, I need to have a conversation with my partner because I can see our relationship is starting to get out of integrity. All right, and let me put that in the diary and keep track of these things and do something about it. The real danger becomes is where we are out of integrity and we just go, let me just tuck it under the rug. Let me pretend that's not happening, or make excuses or deflect or blame or counterattack with people. Because, you know, inside of a relational situation, but also of ourselves, it's like, like you used the phrase you used earlier, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. You know, we are slowly chipping away at our relationship and even our confidence as well, right? This is something I see, I don't know if you've seen this with guys, is that they want to be confident. You know, it's a very common thing for men, like wanting to be confident. And then you observe the way they act. And I think that self-accountability and confidence is really closely linked. Like when we can rely on ourselves to do the things that we say we want to do or are important to us, we build self-confidence in ourselves to take action. But when we're so used to making excuses and being reasonable and all those things, we can't really be confident in ourselves to do or say the things that we have agreed to.
100%. And it's like, it's also the key with like self-sabotage, you know, because we're like, okay, well, I'm not going to do it anyway, so what's the point? So then you just ruin it right from the beginning because you built up enough of a momentum and enough of a story and history of you not fulfilling through or not, following through on the things that you said you were going to do. So it's become this like self-perpetuating cycle, which of course is going to end up the same way. You know, of course, it makes complete sense. We're dropping some gems today. I'm not right. This is like, and it's true. Like I see these guys, and like it's funny what you said earlier. You know, it's like, oh, I have trouble with this, and my life is always in this way, and women don't like me, or this. And your question is like, okay, cool. Well, like, should we just stop here? Like, are we done? There's no point me being here then. You know, and even that nice little flexion is like, okay. there is something that can be done. And that's why it's important to get a coach, because the coach is going to just kind of hold the fucking mirror, or just really say it how it is and get right in there to the point where you think, maybe he's right. And sometimes that's all we need. We need you to grab a little bit of the light, and then we just amplify that, because that's what's missing when we're on our own, is we lose the light. And we can go deep into these dark thoughts that light doesn't exist anymore, and we just need to grab a little bit. I was speaking to my client the other day about the optimism bias, and how when we show up to things with more optimism, the chances of us succeeding in whatever that might become is just higher, because we're already feeling differently. So if you're going optimistically, and then you act differently and you behave differently, then they're going to behave differently, and then chances are the interaction might be more positive, and then successful ending, and then what? Great. Even if you just have to fake it till you make it, but that optimism is powerful, compared to going with like, no, it's probably not going to happen. I'm probably not going to get that job. I'm shit. I'm never going to be good enough. So you show up with like slumped shoulders, maybe you didn't put your tie on properly. You're talking a little bit like this. Before you know it, they're like walking you out the door, like, why did you even come? There's a whole. So there's something to be said, just even around that little bit of fake it till you make it, if you have to, or just try to look at life with like rose-tinted glasses. Sometimes I'd rather look at life as if it's fantastic than it's rubbish.
Yeah.
Like being in London right now is a bit over doom and gloom. Not gonna lie. Okay, it's hard to be in London right now. Where my family is, and it's cost of living this and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, you can choose to look at the world like that, or you could just, make the most of it, or you can choose to be grateful, or there's always a lens to look at the world from. It's just completely up to you. Especially when it comes to say relationships. Again, I hear people talk about, oh, I've given up on love. I'm like, why? Oh, it's too hard. I'm sick of getting my heart broken, or there's no good men, or there's no good women. I'm like, you could think like that, and then you're definitely not going to find anyone. Or you can just keep your heart as open as possible and just be like, okay, throw caution to the wind, and just live life with love. And I always say that, if you want to feel love, you have to be prepared for heartbreak, and that means keeping your heart as open as possible, because there's no love without the potential to be having your heart broken open. So I'd rather live my life knowing that love is possible. I love love. I love love, like all over the place, I like love it everywhere. I'm the kind of guy, you go to the airport and I like seeing people just making out or just hugging and grabbing out and just like, oh, I missed you. Like, I love seeing it. And I love it. I like watching people be in love.
No, it's a beautiful experience to see people in love. And there was something you said about optimism bias, right? And I always think to a book that I read with Malcolm Gladwell, and he said something in his book, I think it's Talking to Strangers, and he said basically, if you live your life and you don't trust anybody, right, your life will be worse than if you live your life and you trust everybody. And he explains how, it was on a podcast, he was saying, because in life there's always going to be people who try and deceive and manipulate you. That's a simple fact of life. There will be a small number of people that do that. He's like, but if you think everybody's trying to do that, then your life will be infinitely horrible, because you won't trust anybody and you won't receive any of the goodness of being in trusting and loving relationships. He said, but if you trust everybody, you'll trust the people who are trustable, which is most people, and the very few people who do hurt you and manipulate you, you'll get hurt and manipulated, but you will be filled with the love and joy that you experience from the other people. And I see this a bit like loving, I see loving as an action, less as a feeling, because it's like love wants to love and doesn't care about being loved in return, right?
I feel like we've read the same book. Have you read All About Love by Bell Hooks?
No, I haven't actually. I haven't read it.
Dude, you need to read that book.
Okay, I'll check it out. All About Love.
You please write it down. All About Love by Bell Hooks. I have never read love articulated in the way that she has articulated it, but you pretty much say what she was saying. So clearly you're on the same wavelength, you know. So yeah, love just wants to be loved. It doesn't matter about what comes back. And that's what happening now. This is like, okay, and this is the world that we're in now, right? Where love is reciprocation and love is
attachment.
expectation. And when expectation of being, and love is not being met. The expectation of love is not being met. So everyone's just unhappy. And then you got that social media where we're looking at what they think love looks like in that snapshot or that video. And then, well, I haven't got that. And it's creating this whole, I don't know, this paradox of reality. We don't know what's real anymore. People aren't allowing themselves to drop into their gut or their heart and what feels good and what feels right to them, you know, without all the, and it's hard because how can you, unless you practice it, you have to practice now being in tune with who you are. We rarely sit in silence. We speak like the everyday man and the everyday woman. We're not sitting in silence. We're distracted all the time. We're on social media often. It's not geared now for love. Society's not geared for love. It's geared for division. You know, and it's sad. It's very sad.
And we don't practice, and this is, I say this a lot to men and women that I work with, is like, we need to practice being loving, because it's a practice, right? Because it's something we do, so we have to practice doing it. And that, like, for me, has been transformational, because as a man who, I won't say I naturally closed my heart, but like, that was my habit of being close-hearted, rapidly being close-hearted. Any like sign of anything I didn't like, I would close my heart. So I've had to practice keeping my heart open in my relationship with my friends, with family, in all these different areas, even with my clients. It's like, because we're out of practice, we're always looking for an opportunity to be like, nope, I'm not going to get what I want in return. And it's that attachment to like, I need to get, and it needs to look a certain way. And I've seen something with my male and female clients a lot recently, is the ones that fall into love and find beautiful relationships are the ones who are willing to be with a little bit of discomfort and pain that occurs as you're getting to know someone, and are willing to meet some of the thoughts they have about, oh, this person isn't right because of some insecurity they have and so forth, and to let go of this illusion of what a relationship should look like from the outside. You know, whether that's a woman who's earning lots of money and she meets a man who has a very modest job that he's deeply passionate and mission-led by, or it's a man who lets go of this idea that his partner needs to look like a fucking supermodel, or she needs to do a certain job, or she needs to be soft and open all of the time, or a woman who meets a man who's like, oh, he's not like a masculine, strong leader, but he's a quiet leader in his life. Because often there's an idea we have of what it needs to look like from movies and films and Instagram posts. And there's the reality of the human being that is going to be good for us and nurture us. And it's like, what I see with the clients who find love and stay in love is a willingness to go, I'm more committed to finding a loving relationship than a relationship that looks like what I think a loving relationship should look like, if that makes sense.
Again, expectation, right? But I think at the end of it is to take a little look at what we really want. And I go through this exercise with my clients called the 5 whys. And there's probably multiple versions of the same exercise. But it's just to go through your list. You know, everyone's got a list of things they want, you know, from a partner, whether it's physical, whether it's the qualities and traits and values and beliefs, and just to ask, okay, why do I want that in my life? Why is that important to me? And then for that why, you write why. And that why, you write why. And then you kind of get to maybe 4 or 5 of them until you really get to the root of that why. And then it's about looking at, okay, does that thing that I said I wanted really showcase that reason, or that reason why? Or is there another way that why might manifest in someone else? You know, so that maybe you're not putting yourself in some kind of shoehorn box of this is the kind of person I want to be with. And I had an example of a woman that I was working with, where she wanted a man that was ambitious and driven. And when we got down to the why was because she wanted a man that would push her dreams and be supportive of her vision. And I was like, do you think that this ambitious and driven man is likely to be as ambitious and driven by your dream? Just hypothetically. And she was like, maybe not. I said, maybe not. There's actually a high chance that he would just be like, listen, I got to do what I got to do. Like, you do what you got to do, but I'm on this path. I ain't got time for what you need. That's also a possibility. So if you need someone that's supportive of your dreams, so maybe there's a different metric that you use to during that dating period to understand whether this is the man for you. Because if I'm a driven, ambitious man, yes, I might support my partner, but I'm definitely going to be more kind of geared towards just making BrotherhoodDXB work or changing the world one man at a time. I might be putting too much time into supporting what you're doing. Just about metrics. Have expectations, but really we can call them standards. It's good to have standards, but you know why you want them. And just also that you can articulate to yourself, but you can articulate it to people around you and your future partners. This is what I want. Why? Not, I just want a man to be rich. Okay? Why? Like, for what? How rich is rich? Like, what does that mean? With the Elon Musk rich? What? We hear all the things now. Like, social media is like just showing me so much about he's got to make 6 bags. This, like, what do you mean? Why? What are we spending money on? What's going on? I don't know. Like, that's what I mean by social media is kind of ruined perception of reality. It's so warped. And so even when you do have like this very humble, and I feel like in the UK you can still have a very humble, just nice, just relationship where it's just like, cool, we're just like, you got your 30k job, I got my 30k job, we got a dog, we got a little apartment, and we're going for a walk through Greenwich Park. Like, it's nice, but people can shit on that and just be like, is that it? It's like, yeah. Like, what's wrong? I'm happy, leave me alone. Whatever the fake Dubai life that you think you want, you're still miserable. No. I feel like the wrong thing to glamorize. Go back to our grandparents' generation. It was just simple. Okay, they were fighting a different fight, but the relationship was simple. Maybe my grandmother and our grandmothers maybe not be happy with our grandfathers. Maybe things have evolved a little bit since then, but to some degree it worked. Who's to say what is working more or less? Oh, now we've got all these choices working now. Now that we've got equality and all this fairness is working better now, when divorce rates are through the roof. I feel like 1 in 2 marriages can determine. I think in America, like, in the divorce. What the hell? Like, I don't think society works better now.
I think what's there is like, there's as you said, what's in the world has been warped. Like you said, there's some of the people I know in the happiest relationships and marriages that I know, and people who have, again, found love that's turned into marriage and relationship. The women I know, and this might be something I tell the female clients I work with, right? I was like, don't look for a man to sweep you off your feet. Look for a man who makes you feel comfortable, safe, and cared for on a consistent basis. Don't be looking for wow. Yeah. Find yourself a nice, boring man. Yeah. Who will love you. I kind of say this in jest, because what I think we see a lot of is, I want to meet this guy who's rich, who's good looking, who's going to take me on this experience of life and take me in these places and blah, blah, blah. You're looking for a man to upgrade your life. Yeah. That's the truth to a certain degree. But actually, is that man going to give you the deeper need that you have, which is maybe safety and being cared for and being loved? Is he going to be able to do that? Or is that man going to be really underneath it, that adventurous man, a playboy, and he will never give you what you want, or will only ever cause you the dysfunction you're in? Or I say to my male clients, it's like, okay, you keep saying like, oh, you want a beautiful woman or a woman who's like this. Like, but do you really need that? Is that just for you to show off to your friends that, oh, look at me and my trophy woman and stuff like this? Because underneath it, the love that we're looking for is very simple, not simple, simple, but not necessarily easy, right? Consistent love, someone who shows up and cares. And I always go back to what I see in my friends, or even in like family members, is like the ones whose relationships are the best, where there's good communication and there's a fun, there's a playfulness. They didn't choose and continually seek for this wow person. They picked someone who was good, and then they picked someone who was willing to put energy into growing a great relationship. And I consistently see this on people. It's like, oh, a good relationship isn't found. A good relationship is grown between two people who are willing to put energy in. And I think the problem that social media and the fact that we can look at everybody's lives now, we live in a world now where I can think, okay, what's this movie star's life like? You know, you go back 50 years and you think of someone like Marilyn Monroe, and you might have only seen her on TV and in movies a few times, right? Now, I can look in the intricate details of Kim Kardashian's life, or the details I think that are there, the manicured, polished stuff. And does it start to make someone think, oh, this is the life I should be aiming for? And there's some merit in that, but there's also the dysfunction, because it's like there's aiming and there's feeling that that's how it should be. So I just wonder sometimes if this is like people coming back to reality and going, actually, I want a good relationship. I don't need these fancy holidays and all these bits and pieces. Like, what's really important to you? Is it being in a loving relationship where you can raise a family and create a beautiful legacy marriage, or whatever it may be, family you want, right? Or is it this like glitz and glamour that you really after?
Needs and wants, perfectly put. What are your needs and what are your wants? But even if you want them, it's okay. It's to just know why you want it. Like, I do want to be attracted to my partner. It isn't because I want to show her off. It's because it's important to me that I want to rip your clothes off. And equally, I know that also I have relationships where over time I've become more attracted to them because I got to know them. So I also know that exists, you know? So equally I know that. But yeah, these are what's important. Why do you want that? What do you really need? Yeah. Society does make us think that we need something different, you know? But it definitely skews the way that we show up in the world, it skews the way that we... I had one guy tell me that he went on a date with this Filipino girl, and, you know, he couldn't be with her in a relationship because, you know, society levels and like, it's not quite matching. I was like, okay, but again, each to their own, but I just felt a bit sad that maybe she could have ticked all the boxes, but I made him feel really great. But because of that, it's like, I'm not even going to go there. You know?
Yeah. It's not moving past
sad, really.
Prejudices and stuff.
But we don't. Exactly. And understanding it, and then, yeah, moving past it. But I do think being out here, everything is heightened. You know, it's really black and white, and it's just everything that you would have seen in terms of what you think you know about Dubai is kind of scaled. You know, it exists. It really is happening here. But equally, there is the other part, which is quite humble and down to earth and grounded and nice. And luckily I found these people. I think you attract what you are. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to meet just awesome, down to earth people, and I did. And that goes to the other part of it. You know, I didn't think we'll go too much today, but clearly we're here. But where you look for people, where you go and find your partner, and how you do that. And one of the things I tell my men and my women is just go have fun with your life. Go do things that you enjoy, do it regularly, and do things that involve the opposite sex, that you're likely to meet familiar faces over a period of time. And even if it happens or doesn't happen, you'll have a good time. Maybe you'll have learned a new skill in the process. And who knows what will happen. But if you go out there to bars, or you just go into clubs, or you go to like salsa social nights, and I don't know, if you're on the apps, I don't think it's just really setting you up nicely for what it is that you're really looking for.
Yeah, I have a similar thing I say to people when they come to me about dating, because usually it's the same story. If a man comes, I'm like, what have you been doing? He's like, I've been on the apps. I'm like, okay, cool. What else have you been doing? What do you mean, what else? That's how you meet people. I was like, no, it isn't. I didn't meet my I've none of my, actually one of my ex-girlfriends I met on a dating app, and that was 13 years ago. Every partner I've had before is I've met them in some sort of in-person place. And so I first of all, sit down with them. I'm like, okay, what are you interested in? What could you be interested in? What are you open to trying? And let's start looking through what's in your local area. Like if you're in London, then boom, you're Bob's your uncle, man, because I can find you. Oh, you want to go to sex positive events? Okay, here's 5 for you to go to next week. And you're interested in Tantra. Yep, there's a few things for you there. If you interested in the nature of consciousness, like, because there are things out there that people are going to who are interested in things like you're interested in things, that you could meet those people. And I think this is an untapped resource that used to be the way, you go back 10, 15 years ago, that's how you met people. And people have become a bit lazy, it's like, oh, let me just swipe on the app in my boxer shorts while I'm watching TV and, having some popcorn. But actually, as you said there, it's like being in places where there's mixed groups of people is one of the most amazing places to meet like-minded people for friendship and for relationship. But when we're living a life that I'll use one of my friends, Kapil, would say, when you're living a life that turns you on, people will be attracted to you, and they'll bask in your enjoyment and your nature of being turned on. And then all you need to do is start being in your masculine energy and organize and be proactive and bring people together. Because once you do that, then you're going to naturally meet a lot of people. And if the direct people around you, you're not meeting people to date, there's layers, because there's the friends of friends and all those sorts of things where before you know it, you've got a friendship group and you're having a great time. And if you're single or not single, it doesn't matter, because you're enjoying your life, and someone is bound to come into your field as long as you're taking the right actions when you're in that field, and being proactive.
Yeah. 100%. Go back into that thing of how you do one thing, how you do everything. If you're treating the potential mother of your children that you're going to get her through some quick go, how is that building the idea of longevity and commitment into your psyche, your mind? How are you bringing that into your life if all you're doing is thinking quick? This I want it now, but I want it easy. That's not really setting you up nicely for how life typically is anyway. Life can be easy, but it's easy when you do the hard things. Do what's hard, life will be easy. Do what's easy, life will be hard. This is all the days that I see all over my Instagram. It's just things like this, Like, look at the world that we in now. Everything's available at the click of a button. You can get your food delivered easy. You can get your woman can click on you and like, yeah, okay, I got a match. I can chat to her easy. You don't have to go and get over the anxiety of having that conversation. I didn't learn the social skill. I didn't know what to say, what not to say. So what's actually happening is there's a cost to everything. So you think it's easy, but there's a cost. What's the cost of it? The cost of you have less confidence. You don't even know if they will like you, and you have less confidence in yourself going to that first date because you're only connected through the app. So we've got catfishing, we've got just being nervous as fuck, but you don't know. Does she like me for who I am? Really, I don't even know. At least if you went up to spoke to someone, they know who you are, they know how you sound. If you go on a date with them, you know that they want to. Whereas if you run the risk of you showing up, and it's like, one of you may be disappointed. Maybe you learn about your height, and it's like, oh damn, she's like that tall. It's happened to me. Whereas if you meet her in person, she happens to be taller or it doesn't matter. Like, okay, cool, we don't sit. If that's a thing. It was a thing for me. It used to bother me now, not so much. But it's cooking. Even another thing, you haven't built up the skill to learn how to cook and take the time. We're losing skills for what? To save time for what? So you can watch more Netflix. But so you can scroll social media more. So we can be more connected but still feel alone. That doesn't make any sense. I noticed myself on Instagram for too long. Like, what am I doing? I notice that I pick it up when I wake up in the morning. I need to get rid of that. I notice. But I'm also noticing that we're living in a life where we want dopamine all the fucking time. And what's that doing is it's actually inhibiting us feeling actually any of that dopamine. You know, so we're not really enjoying life. We need more. We need to pick bigger hits. We need more. I don't know, attention. Attention, I think, is the currency right now. You know, that's the main way in which we feel like we're someone, because we're getting attention from somewhere. And when we're not, bro, the hardest, I hear a lot from my men, that they get depressed when they're on social media, dating apps, because they ain't getting matches. They're not getting matches. And that's sad. I'm like, dude, get off the app then. Go talk to people. You get some kind of interaction. But if you're waiting and hoping, and then you feel, okay, I'm being judged only on how I look, what's that going to do to self-esteem? Self-esteem's just going to shoot down. And then how are you going to show up in the world? There is a cost to everything. Nothing is free. You know? We are, like, that one was quite sad, because I heard it also really recently from one of the brothers. And I felt for, anyway, you delete the apps now. Now we're working with him on his confidence, and I think very soon we're going to get him out talking to people, you know, just in a coffee shop or something. So real life immersion, you know, that's what we're going to do. I did it to a client one day. He didn't know I was going to do this. And I made it up on the spot. He told me that he didn't, as a girl that he liked at the gym, and he hadn't spoken to her for 3 months. I was like, dude, what the hell? Why? Because, she's always with her friend. I was like, so? He goes, well, what if she says, like, no, I get embarrassed? I'm like, okay, cool. I said, what do you think of this girl over here? She goes, yeah, she's really hot. I said, cool, go talk to her. He's like, what? My guy was sitting there for 5 minutes, like, sweating, you know, drinking water. It's just like, oh my God. I was like, dude, she's just a person. It's just a person. Why is she up here and you're like down here? I don't understand. Why are we creating this disparity, this distance between who we are as humans? Do you know, you might not even like her. Just go have a conversation. I don't care what you say, you have to go talk to her. He's like, fine. He got up, he did it. I'm looking at my watch, like, where's this guy? I had to go get him, yeah? I was like, get back. I said, excuse me, so sorry, lady, but I got to take him back now. Took him back, sat him down, and I said, what did you learn? He said, I learned that they're not that scary. I said, of course not that bloody scary. You know, how was the conversation? Yeah, it was easy, it was nice. I said, there you go. We're all the same. You know, everyone's just cool. We make things up here. And the only way to get over it is to go take action. So looping back all the way to the reason why we think we should have a coach, because a coach makes you take action. And it's the only action is the antidote. That's the phrase right there. Action is the answer to everything. All these fears and everything, just go do it.
Yeah.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Book.
You know, that's what I think. Why not?
There was, what you were saying there is about the way that our modern society has created comfort. And it's, dating apps allow us to avoid rejection in the moment, right? But what I've seen is exactly what you've said you experienced with a client there is, the dating apps allow us to avoid rejection in the moment with a person we might talk to. You know, back in the day, it was a bar or on the street or in a coffee shop, because that rejection there is hard. So we get to avoid that hard thing. So we use dating apps. But the problem with dating apps for many men and women too, is they find themselves in the end through not getting any matches or any suitable matches, right? Is they go from the pain of rejection, which makes me think there's something I've done wrong and makes us feel a little bit of shame maybe for a moment, but we also feel an exhilaration for taking action, to being on dating apps. And we start to feel a deep shame for who we are. There is something wrong with who I am, and that's why I'm not getting any matches. And we've avoided the initial rejection, which, man, I was a dating coach 15 plus years ago. So I used to take guys out on the streets, in the bars, going up to women, and I saw some brutal rejection in my time. I experienced some brutal rejection. I once went up to a girl in a bar. I said something to her, which was along the lines of like about her drink or something like that. She misheard me and she slapped me in the face. She misheard what I said, slapped me in the face. Then I was like, well, what was that about? And she was like, I'm not even going to say what you said. I was like, yeah, but I don't think you heard what I said. Got talking to her friend, spoke to a friend for about 20 minutes. And her friend was like, hey, like, this guy's a really nice guy. Like, what do you think he said? And then she said it. And it's basically, I said, if she thought I said something about like grabbing her ass. And I was like, no, I was blah, 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 blah. And her friend was like, no, half an hour later, the three of us were all talking, we were all getting along. And the girl who slapped me, and I was teaching this day, right? So I was teaching. So my students saw this happen. Half an hour later, this girl was like, I'm really sorry I did that. Like, I shouldn't have done that. That's really out of order of me. And that's quite, because if you did that to me, you'd get kicked out of this bar, right? And you actually didn't do anything. And I get that I misheard you. And that's the most severe experience I've had, right? And I lived through that. I'm still alive, and I still speak to women and strangers sometimes. But what I see is that men don't want to have to deal with that rejection, right? That initial pain. So they retreat to the apps. And listeners, that is a very extreme example. Like, that happened to me once in my whole life, and I've probably spoken to thousands of women and people in general who are strangers. But like, that little bit of rejection that we face when we go up to a stranger and they like don't want to talk to us, or they don't expand on conversation, it builds resilience, it builds confidence, it builds us up as human beings. And I understand this need. Our world is moving towards more comfort, and it has done for the last 200 years, you can argue, with washing machines and all these things that can help us wash and make food and so forth. But actually, in my opinion, is there's a insidious layer to that comfort, is that it's actually about productivity, and it's a capitalist thing. They're just trying to get us to work more, right? But what that does is the productivity and the comfort destroys connection with ourselves. It's something you mentioned earlier, connection to who we are, with stillness and slowing down and being with ourselves, and connection to other people, having the time to sit, have a conversation over some coffee instead of it being time boxed to 15 minutes because we got to get back to another meeting, right? We're losing the human feeling, the ability to sit with another human and feel that human, understand that human, empathize with that human, see their body language, and that skill there. This is one of my predictions of the future. That skill there of being with another human and being able to be in a relational moment, of feeling them, of being like, oh, this person feels like they're stressed, and being able to intuit that thing, that is becoming already, but in the future even more so, an incredibly valuable currency for anybody that has that skill. We're seeing it, even the idea of coaching in itself to a certain degree is that skill in currency. It's like that, being able to feel another human being, because it's going to be easier for us as human beings to not have that skill, because everything will be done through our phone or our computer screen. But the thing that people will start to pay for more and more is human contact, human connection.
100%. 100%. I even think that the rise of escorts and use of escorts has increased, over the years. I think there was a heavy rise, obviously, in the pandemic, which makes sense and doesn't make sense at the same time, but people are happy to pay for it. It's easy to feel that. It's huge hit. There's lots of them. And it's not slowing down, because it's the same thing. Like, why would I go and try and put myself in a place where I wouldn't know comfortable when I can just throw a couple of hundred and I can feel something, which is sad. It's really, really sad. And I think you're right. I think we are going in that direction, and it's going to be the case. Just paying to feel something. There's a film called Equilibrium with Christian Bale, and it's a dystopian future where they have to inject themselves with this thing that stops them from feeling any emotion, because they believe that emotion is what ends up killing the world, and there's no more crime because all we feel to be premeditated to do something. They burn all culture, they burn books, they burn artwork. There's nothing left. And eventually, one guy breaks out of it, and then it's got to appeal again, and that's where we're going. And it's where we come into it. We need to encourage people to be more in touch with what they're really feeling, as much as possible, and not to numb it. And everyone should just get off these apps. I think it started with a good intention, as with all these apps do, but they become a crutch, becomes poison, and a vice that does more harm than good. Like I said, always think about what is the cost. There is a cost to everything. Yeah, we've been all over the place.
We went everywhere.
We went everywhere. Wow. So, like, with the client I'm working with now, or one of the ones that's kind of standing out for me is a man that came to me and he wanted more confidence with women because he recently got rejected. And he hasn't really had many relationships, or if really any, or, quite into his 30s. And I was like, cool, let's work together. And then he soon realized that I wasn't going to help him get women. That's not what I do. I'm not that guy. If you're going to go do that, go with the game. Go figure that out. No stress. I ain't that guy. I'm like an advanced version of this. I'm like the super hitch of Dubai, but in a way where I'm gonna have you loving yourself. And one of the things I said to him was like, make yourself interesting to yourself, where you can have a conversation with yourself and with anyone about anything because you're interested in it. Say to me, what are you interested in? What do you want to do? And it's like, you've got low-hanging fruit that you can deal with. You can get your health in check. You can get your physique in check. That might also make you more attractive and make you feel good about yourself and feel better in your clothes. Therefore, you show up more, more confidently, and you just feel more confident, and you'd also attract the women. It's like it goes full circle. You could change the way you dress a little bit. You could shave your head, look like me, because I think maybe you should. You could smell better. You could take up some hobby. It's something like easy things that you can do that will mean that you'll be you'll be more attractive without having to proactive. And then let's put you out there and let's see how you act. You already feel different. You just bang, put your arm on the table and your biceps popping. You already feel like you're the guy. Low hanging fruit. Make these men more interesting. Make them feel more confident themselves, without having to put a mask over something or some kind of plaster or some kind of trick, some kind of special opener of a line. You don't need openers. Just people authentic. I went up to a woman recently and I just said, I saw you when you walked in and you captivated me. And she was just blown away in this comment. And I wasn't even trying to get her number or anything. I just felt like saying it. And she said to me, men don't do this anymore. That's what she said. And I was like, well, that's a shame. But hi, nice to meet. And that's it. And now we might be doing some work together because she's also a coach.
Business. Taking care of business.
Yeah. Just think, just be authentic. I like that this is your thing, Be yourself. And if you don't know who you are, that's a good place to start. If you're unsure of yourself, that's a good place to start. If you're unsure of yourself, don't go looking for a partner right now. Start with that. Start with you. You get your house in order. You watch everything fall into place.
I couldn't agree more. It's we think it's the outer world we need to search for something in. It's like when we start coming home to ourselves. I wrote something about this last night, actually. It's like our fears and our insecurities and our worries, they're not really part of who we are, because that's what gets layered on top of us, just conditioned onto us. Underneath, there's this playfulness, this loving, this charisma, there's a joy, there's a curiosity and openness. That is the essence of a human being. That is the essence of who we are. So coming to who we are is actually less about learning new things. It's about letting go of the fears, the worries, the stories, and allowing the innateness of a human being to shine out of you more often. You might walk down the street and you might see someone, you're like, wow, I love that outfit they're wearing. You might just go up to them and go, hey, I just had to stop and just say, I really love what you're wearing. It's like a beautifully put together, the colors and everything. And they're like, thank you. You're like, great, have a good day, and walk on. Because you don't want anything. You just want to express that.
Yeah. Exactly. Just mean it. Just be authentic. Just be truthful. Be honest. And without and whilst detaching yourself from any outcome, except just to be love, give love, spread joy, and watch what comes back. Just watch what comes back. If you want to try and then add on and try and get a bit of further conversation, then just when you test and you play, that didn't quite work. Okay, next one I'm going to try this differently. Be playful, like you said. I like that. Be playful, and that comes up. The more you're in touch with who you are, and that's how I feel. I feel like I can't even get rejected because there's no such thing as rejection to me. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, I have a boyfriend. Okay, cool. Okay, nice. That's good. Just go. You know, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't reflect on who I am. Just everyone's allowed to make their own choice.
You don't want to be.
I'm not everyone's cup of tea. You know. Is it? No, honestly, imagine walking through life thinking that you want to be liked by everyone. Man, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of weight to have on your shoulders. You know.
Well, brother, I notice that time is running away with us. And what a wonderful weaving conversation. You know, we've really ducked and weaved out of a lot of things. But, you know, everything kind of comes under the similar umbrella, you know. And I'm sure the listeners are wondering, you know, where they can find more out about you, listen to you more.
Oh, yes. Yes. So you'll find me mainly on Instagram as Adil Coaches Men. I do coach women too, but Adil Coaches Men is my handle. I've got, you know, just some really awesome things that I'm doing in Dubai with BrotherhoodDXB. But if anyone's interested in learning more about my coaching, just drop me a DM. Focus on things around, you know, helping people just understand a bit more about who they are. And, you know, I know we do very similar things, but if anyone just wanted to hear a bit more about me, then feel free. You can always have a nice free conversation with me to start with and see if we vibe. You know, I am looking at creating something for, say, December period to kind of get people ready for the new year, rather than just like, I'm going to start new year, new me, and new. No, I'm like, preparation is key. You know, we're not about New Year's resolutions, it's about creating a strategy and actually hitting the ground running when the new year starts. So I'm going to create a program around that, maybe around like a month, to watch this space.
Thank you, man. Thank you for such an enthralling conversation and the weaving and the synergy and the way that there are so many pieces in there that are so vital for us to think about ourselves as men, how we show up, accountability, integrity, you know, how we keep our word to ourselves, and, you know, how we look for love and how the stories we tell ourselves. These are just the vital parts of life. And as any listeners here, I just want you to always remember, these things aren't binary. Like, it's not like you have integrity, you don't have integrity. It's more of like a very big spectrum. Say, for instance, with accountability, it's like, okay, you might be 90% accountable, but it's that 10% that's getting in the way. Or you might be 99% and that's that 1%. And it's like, as much as we should be accepting and be present with our lives, there's also the continual expansion and improvement of us. So it's like, don't listen to this and go, well, I'm doing really well and I don't need to do anything. Actually, there's some percentage there for you that you could really gain from with working with someone who will be able to get a magnifying glass out and show you like those bits of sand in your shoe that you don't think are really troubling you, but actually they're slowing you down a few paces every day and they can speed up. So yeah, man, thank you. Big thank you to you in this conversation.
Thank you. I'm glad today.
Yeah. And listeners, if you enjoyed the episode, then, you know, get in contact with us and just, you know, say what it is you're taking away. Maybe there's some particular nugget that we talked about, the particular thing that really touched you. Let us know, because it's always good to hear. Don't be shy. Don't feel like we're going to reject you or anything like that, because that's not the game we're in. It's always beautiful to hear from listeners and what's touched them and moved them and shifted things in their life. But until next week's listeners, I say ciao, ciao. I want to say a big thank you for listening. You know, it's people like yourself that really help get the podcast out into the world, you know, especially if you're often sharing the episodes and the podcast with people that you feel just could do with listening, right? Can see a different way of being a man, maybe a different way of having dating lives and intimacy and relationships. So I want to say a big thank you. And if maybe after listening to this episode, you think, oh, there's someone actually who could really do with this, please share it with them, you know, share the love. I'm really, really grateful. And if, you know, you want to get in contact with me for any questions, or you want to talk about coaching or any working together, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram @theauthenticman_, or you can email me hello@theauthenticman.net. Thank you very much.